Hello, everybody, and welcome to the finale. We started with Amichai from Shiloh, and we're going to end with Amichai from Shiloh. Great presentation tonight. We're going to be talking with a legend about the legends.
Thank you, guys. Thank you again for joining us throughout this, amazing thing. We put this together really just on one quick phone call. This all came together, and it came together pretty quickly. So the team at Kosherwine.com has been amazing to work with. Don't think it's over. This is just the next chapter is going to start real soon. I have a feeling we're going to be doing some other stuff out there. As we were just all talking about, there's going to be new ways of approaching stuff. So we'll be getting to you guys soon, some just new interesting ways to taste wine and talk to the winemakers directly. And we're going to be talking with Amichai from Shiloh. I thought a very cool way to end this little thing was the Legend series. So Amichai, as always, is the crazy one, waking up at all crazy hours of the day to come chat with us. So good morning, good evening, good afternoon, Amichai. How are you?
Good morning.
Good morning, sir. What's going on, Amichai? The legend himself. What's
going on? First, tomorrow is my Aliyah anniversary.
Mazal tov.
Congratulations.
Tomorrow is going to be 50 years in Israel.
Wow.
Time flies.
Wow. So what are we opening tomorrow?
I don't know what we're opening. I'll let the kids decide, When the kids come over and there's a gathering in the family, then usually the kids decide what to open.
So it's almost like the Jews, 40 years, you're 50 years. That's quite an amazing feat to be there for, and also from so long ago. You've literally watched that country develop. You can even see over the last few years the amount of development going on there, but I'm assuming over 50 years it's quite something.
I don't remember the beginning, but amazing things. Things are changing all the time. Actually, we're also doing something, I think the thing that I like to do the most when it comes to winemaking. But Tuesday we'll be waking up early to be first light in the vineyard to plant a new vineyard. We're planting Cabernet Sauvignon and Petit Syrah. And I really encourage people to try and do it because it's even more amazing than harvest. Planting a new vineyard, and then vines grow so quickly that every week you're there, it's like this baby vine, this tiny little thing, and you come back 2 weeks later or a week later, and it's already bigger, and a month later, there's this long branch coming out. It's amazing feeling,
And where are the grapes at right now? We haven't talked to anybody in a couple of days. Where are the grapes at right now?
So grapes now are either just started Veraison, I think that's how you say it, when the color changes from green to red.
It's French, Veraison.
French.
But in English we say Veraison, but it's Veraison.
Okay. In Hebrew, we say bochal.
Bochal.
And it's true to all fruits, right? They change their color like that. So we're either a couple of weeks before, or in some vineyards, it just started. For example, Barbera just started. I have 2 vineyards of Cabernet and Merlot that usually are harvested earlier than others, and one of the best that we have. And it seems like it's going to change because I can see that the green is getting a lighter color. I know it's going to happen. So it's probably going to happen in the next week or two. And during the next month, that's what's going to happen. All the vineyard, all the green grapes in the vineyard, and some of them are really, really big. And suddenly you see all the grapes, all the clusters turn purple and black. It looks really nice. It's very cool.
It's when everyone takes their pictures out and all the websites get updated with new pictures and all that fun stuff.
Everybody takes pictures there. I'm usually too busy running around, but
we talked about a good topic today was going to be talking about the Legend series. If I'm going to drink both, which one should I drink first in a series?
So I usually recommend to drink both. And I'm serious, drink both. Not mix them together, obviously. But have 2 glasses in front of you and taste them both at the same time. Because there are 2 very special blends and they're 2 very different wines, right? They're completely 2 angles. And it's nice to taste them at the same time and bounce from one to the other. This is like, I always say this and I'll say it again. People are getting bored, people that know me, but the same thing with food. You don't have only one thing in front of you when you're eating.
If you're to give me a tasting order, which one should I put? They're both open now.
If they're both open, then I say I'd go first with the Legend Honey, which is a blend of Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, and Malbec. And then I'd go with a Legend Fiddler, which is Petit Syrah, Petit Verdun, and Shiraz. Why in that order? I think because the Legend Honey is a more complex, smooth, elegant wine, and the Legend Fiddler is a fruit bomb. Right? It's very fruity, very powerful wine. And to start, if you're only drinking wine and you don't have anything next to it, once you start with the Legend Fiddler, it's usually overwhelming. And when you go from there to the Legend Honey, sometimes it'll cover up things that you'll taste better if you taste them.
I have an interesting question for you, Amichai. Which grape, when you planted it for the first time, surprised you the most?
When it comes to planting,
and using the grape though, also when you actually had it.
Well, I think Petit Syrah or Durif, some people call the grape, I think surprised me the most. First because I didn't plant a lot of it, because most Petit Syrah that I tasted were hollow. They're very tannin, the strong, powerful tannins, but it has no mid palate, and I felt it wasn't the grape that I wanted to do big things with it. Okay, maybe add some tannin to some wines. Color is never a problem in Israel in general, and Shiloh Winery too. So I didn't need it for color, but I thought it would be interesting in a blend. And then in the vineyard, I realized that growing Petit Syrah is very complicated. It tends to a lot of diseases that it's very, very hard to keep the grapes clean. You know, it's been going very, very strong from 2009 when we started it. It was released, I think, 2011. And since then, we're just selling more and more of this wine. It's very strong.
And you also make a single varietal Petit Syrah now.
Yeah, right. And we did it once in 2007, then we stopped, and we started doing it again in 2017. A single varietal Petit Syrah, because we saw that all this crazy hard work in the vineyards, you have to come to see it to understand what it is, how difficult it is to tame the vines to grow in a way that the grapes get good exposure to light and air, and to find the right place to plant the vineyard, because we already planted once in a place that wasn't the best for Petit Syrah. We realized that we needed a place that there are a lot of winds and a way to protect it, that it doesn't get too much sun. And we found that a Petit Syrah that's done right can be so amazing that it deserves its own wine. And in the Secret Reserve, we have a single varietal Petit Syrah that I think It's an amazing wine. And what's so nice about it, it's so different. And it's not just another wine, a really good wine, okay? But it's so different. The flavors are so powerful.
That being said, can you tell me why did you choose Honey and why did you choose Fiddler? How'd you pick those specific characters?
Well, Fiddler, I don't remember who picked I think maybe Meir. I think the owner of the winery, I think he chose the name Legend. It was his idea. And Fiddler, I don't remember who brought it up. Maybe the designer that does our labels. And
he was not a big show tune guy, Mayor?
What?
I thought he was a big show tune guy.
He's big what?
Show tunes. Broadway musicals.
Maybe. I don't know.
It's okay.
So much for the Fiddler on the roof reference.
So I do recommend to put both glasses next to each other and smell them and taste them together because they're so different that it makes it more interesting.
And from a pairing perspective, they can go common with the same food?
So I think the Legend Choni goes very well with food, but it also stands alone, especially if you open it up a couple of hours before or even a day before. It's a very nice, smooth wine. That's that glass of wine you want to have in the evening after everything quiets down. Then it doesn't need anything next to it, although it can go very well with food. Legend Fiddler needs food because it'll make food that much better, what you're eating, and the food will make the wine that much better too. L'chaim. So this is my first sip of the day. It's not the end of yesterday because I did get a couple of hours of sleep.
L'chaim.
Baruch.
Amen. So this is the Honey in front of you, right? And this is just reminding everyone, it's the Cab Malbec Cab Franc blend.
Right. Actually, we had to change the vineyard of the Malbec because one of the vineyards of Malbec we had to uproot. There's a crazy, terrible virus running around the world. It's not Corona.
Leaf roll?
And Lifol 3, yeah. And that's really causing a lot of damage in the vineyards. And past couple of years, every vineyard that passed 20% with the virus, we uprooted it. And we're even the past 2 years, we've been planting even more than we need because we know it's going to continue. Because we have a couple of vineyards, although they have very, very little, but I'm always afraid that it'll spread. And it's very hard to predict. Like 2 years ago, vineyards went from 5% to 50% in one season. And there are other vineyards that are like, there's just a little bit, and it's been like that for the past couple of years, and it isn't changing. But I don't want to take any chances. I want to make sure that I have enough grapes to make wine. So we've been planting a lot the past couple of years. And if anybody's around, you can come tomorrow morning. We're planting another one. Let's start with Legend Fiddler if we're talking about the blends. Okay, I know I like to taste the Legend Choni first. But since Legend Fiddler is a wine that we started first, okay, that's the first Legend that we made. Because the blend is so special and unique, then we'll talk about that. So it's made out of Petit Syrah, Petit Verdot, and Shiraz. Petit Syrah and Petit Verdot, the tannins, yep, sure, got it, did that. Petit Syrah and Petit Verdot, I encourage people to come visit me at the winery, although we don't have a visitor center, but we do show you what's going on behind the scenes. And a barrel tasting is amazing. at any time of the year. But now even more than this season, it's really cool. And when you taste the components of the Legend Fiddler before the blend and after the blend, it's really amazing, because if you taste the Petit Syrah and the Petit Verdot, the tannins are so powerful and so overwhelming, especially at the beginning. Your mouth is almost numb. You know, it really grips your mouth very much. The Shiraz it maybe doesn't have those powerful tannins, but dark fruit, etc. And blending this Legend Fiddler started with a mistake, or started by coincidence. I was after a wine taste, at the end of a wine tasting at the winery. I was blending back and forth. I don't know if you've seen it, but a friend took a video clip of me tasting wines and tasting barrel tastings, and it's very cool. And at the end of the day, after tasting and evaluating the different wines, then I wanted to put all the glasses away and everything. So I poured the one glass into the other, so it'll be in one place, and put all the empty glasses somewhere. And as I was pouring in some wines into one glass, this crazy fruity aroma came out. And I said, wait, stop here. What did I just put in this glass? And I smelled it and tasted it, and wow, this is really great wine. And I said, guys, let's try and figure out what I just did here. Saw that the last wines that I was tasting were Petit Syrah and Petit Verdot and Shiraz. And I tasted, I said, oh my God, let's start all over again. Literally took out barrel samples again. And we started the wine tasting again, only focusing on Petit Syrah, Petit Verdot, and Shiraz. And we found that it's like, how can I explain? You take something that's very, very grippy tannins, and another one that's the same. It just doesn't make any sense to put them together, because you won't be able to drink the wine. And then for some reason, putting these things together was so much better than each one of them on its own.
Two people have been asking, can you just tell us exactly where the winery itself is located, and where you are now, and how far you are from the winery?
So I'm in Ma'ale Levona, and it's near Ariel. The winery is in Shiloh. It's about a 7-minute drive from my house. Shiloh is the center of Israel. That means if you take the Israel and make an X, Shiloh is there. Shiloh is where everything started, right? We were left Egypt 40 years in the desert because we didn't behave. And we were let into Eretz Israel. And the capital of Israel was Shiloh for 369 years before King David, before Jerusalem. And it's an amazing, amazing experience to come visit the archaeology site in Shiloh and come see ancient wine presses that date back 3,000 years in the area in Shiloh. It's amazing.
And you know, the part that blows my mind also, even though we have so much technology in the world with wine, especially in Israel, especially in utilizing it, but it's so similar to these thousands of years ago is what we've been doing. It's still the same way almost.
The making wine is the same way exactly. We make wine today the same way people have been making wines thousands of years ago. Take grapes. Grapes are very sweet. Natural yeast breaks down the sugar. You have alcohol. That's it. Right. And they used to temperature control it by making smaller quantities and doing it underground in cool places. And today we use a stainless steel tank and a cooling system. But more or less, almost everything is the same. even aging in barrels or aging in ceramic. And the idea was to let the wine be able so it can breathe a little bit, right? And get micro oxidation, so to speak. I think that today wines age longer than it did in ancient times. I think their wines usually turned into vinegar about a year after, I'd say. Maybe a little bit longer, especially when they were dry. Maybe when they were sweeter, then maybe it lasted longer. But today it has wines age better than they did in ancient times. It would be interesting to taste the wine that was made then, right?
Well, they didn't know how to use SO2 back then.
Well, they did use all kinds of things. They used what was called, I think, melach sdomit, which is a kind of salt they used to add to wine, right? They used to add things to the wine to preserve it. I think I'm not arrogant to say that I know everything they knew and I'm doing it that much better. I'm sure they had their own techniques how to do things and better than we're doing today, and there's still things to learn. And sometimes progress is good, right? We can make the wine cleaner and better, and we can age it in glass, which is much better, and so many things that are better. But sometimes progress isn't so good. Look what happened in everything that has to do with our bread that we eat, right? Everything is, maybe the wheat today is very good, but we're using yeast and all kinds of things that are making the bread very hard to digest. And that's why so many people are going back to eating only sourdough, right? Because they find that doing it how they used to do it hundreds or thousands of years ago is that much better and that much easier to digest and healthier. By the way, there's a lot of similarity between baking bread and making wine, right? It's the same idea of yeast breaking down the sugars, right? And dough rising is like wine fermenting.
We have another about 10 minutes here, Amichai. I want you maybe just to walk us through these two, but I really think the best suggestion I have for these two wines, like you always say, is just buy them and taste them, or find a way to taste them. I just think, like you said, they'll really.
And I really encourage people to taste them together. And these wines, I promise you, not just that they will age for years, but even if you leave them open for a couple of days, they'll even just get better. That means if you want to drink it for your Shabbat meal, then open the wines Thursday night, have a glass of wine out of each of them, and then drink it Friday night for Shabbat, and then on Shabbat day. And even if you have some wine left on Sunday and Monday, the wine will just get better.
And what do? You just put the cork back in the bottle? That's
all I do is usually when you put the cork back in, if you put it upside down in, then it goes back in very easily. Try putting it the same way as hard. And I put this in my wine cellar.
You don't punch the cork in. You don't do anything. You just
no punching, no taking out the air or trying to take out the air or anything. No, just put it in like that. That even if there's a half a bottle or only a quarter bottle left for a couple of days, I promise you, try it. You'll see the wine gets. So many things happen, and the wine gets smoother. And you get so many more things you get out of the wine once it was opened for a couple of hours or a couple of days. That's why when you're in a rush, a lot of people will use a decanter. I like using a decanter because it's nice, maybe not because of what it does to the wine. It looks really cool on the table, especially if you have some nice ones.
See, our friend Gershon that's joining us from Morad, his technique was, I'm just going to make a coffee liquor, and then I can start with it. It's much easier that way. So that's his excuse. If you ever, Gershon figured it out, Amichai.
That's his excuse for alcohol, right?
Gershon, come say hi to everyone.
Okay. Thank you, and hello everyone.
Gershon, do you know
Nice to see
Amichai?
you.
Amichai, you guys know each other?
Yes, we've
Yes, I
met
do.
many
I do,
times.
and I even want to say that I enjoy his wine. It is very good.
Thank
I
you.
specifically like Shiraz. Shiraz is one of my favorite, and his Shiraz is very good.
Thanks, Gershon.
Thank you very much.
And Amichai, if you've never had his passion fruit wine before,
I did.
for breakfast.
I did. The first time I had it was in New York, and I've had it since then a couple of times during the different shows that we meet each other. Yeah.
We have a question that just came in, Amichai. Someone's saying the wine in the time of the Talmud had to be distilled with 3 parts water.
Diluted.
With 3 parts water.
So it was common to add water to your wine in ancient times. And I know there are a lot of different explanations for this. And some people say that the wines were so much stronger then, and because of that, they had to add water, and that's how people used to do it. I can tell you my theory, okay? My theory is that the wines in ancient times weren't stronger than they are today. I know that it's most people don't agree, but I think that the wines today are anywhere between 12 to 16% alcohol, okay? And I do believe that in ancient times it was the same, okay? Sometimes the wines were maybe had more residual sugars in there because they made wines from grapes that were, almost like raisins. And even once it was done fermenting, then there was still, it was stronger because it was sweeter, okay, sometimes. But I do believe that you had more or less the same percentages of alcohol like there are today. So people say, so if that's the story, then why in the Talmud and in other places it says that they used to add anywhere between 1/3 to 2/3 water before drinking the wine? And that was common. That's how people used to do it. You know, you sat down to drink your wine, you took the wine out of your barrel or wherever it was, and you added 2/3 of water. So I can tell you my theory, okay? My theory is that it wasn't common in ancient times to drink water, right? People were drinking different kinds of beers, you could say, okay? And most of those beverages that people drank in ancient times had a very low percentage of alcohol. I'd say 3 to 5 to 6% alcohol in most beers or beverages that people drank in ancient times, especially during the Talmud times. That's what people were drinking. And when they say that wine was strong, they meant, right, this wine, when you compare a regular average red wine that's anywhere between 12 to 16% alcohol, and maybe with or without residual sugar, when you compare it to a beer, okay, and they didn't, didn't stay bubbly. It was like this stale beer that they were drinking thousands of years ago, hundreds of years ago. When you compare it to a wine, the wine is very strong. And if you take wine and you can try it, and I did try it a couple of times to see if it comes to something similar. So if you take a beer that has very little fizz in it left, and you take a wine and you dilute it with a 1/2 or 2/3 of water, it comes to something very similar in strength. And that's my theory, what it meant in the Talmud. And that's why it was very common then. I think drinking a beverage that's 12 to 16% alcohol is something relatively new, okay? It's, or in general, higher percentages of alcohol. People that drink hard liquor of different kinds, it's relatively new. But it wasn't, people weren't doing it in ancient times. That's my theory. I don't know if it's true or not, but
David, what do you got coming on over at Kosherwine.com with Shiloh? What's been moving and flying over in your world?
Obviously, the privilege is a big mover. It's a more recent addition. It's the entry level wine that was produced basically to be accessible, easy drinking, everyday wine. So that's been doing well. The Mosaic, of course, the flagship. Even though there's been an addition to the exclusive Mosaic, which is really high end, but the Mosaic is a big mover. The rosé moves very fast every year. Comes and goes. It's one of the first rosés to sell out. And the legend of the two legends, the Honey sells quite well. The Fiddler also does, but the Honey people I think buy more. That probably has to do with more the people probably used to traditional blends, right? Because those are like varietals that you find in Bordeaux. It also has Cab. Cab is Cab. Petit Syrah, Petit Verdot is quite an interesting blend to begin with. Throw in some Shiraz. But that, to me, that's a lot more interesting because those are really varietals that are well suited for Mediterranean climate. Petit Syrah, I often find, has a nice floral aspect to it. So it's not that, as there is obviously the fruity. It's a very jammy, fruity, like rich fruit, plum, like very juicy fruit. But it also has a floral component to it. So I think it's a little bit more nuanced, a little bit more interesting. But Shiloh, there's so many wines. There's so many wines there, and it's a very popular brand. Obviously, that's why Amichai is so popular, because if you drink kosher wine, you've drank Shiloh wine. Let's just put it that way.
And listen, I just want to throw out there that all the work that I've been doing Kosherwine.com, that David knows his stuff, guys. He's well versed. He tastes all his wines that he gets into the store before he gets them all. And he's studying every day. He's learning level 1, 2, and 3. I think he's learning to become a level 4 WSET right now. So when you guys when I work with people like this that are out there learning on every level, it makes it much easier for everybody to understand. So David, thank you for out there learning during these times and teaching everybody with us.
You got it. Just do it so I can appreciate Amichai's wines.
Trying to figure out all his tricks.
Listen, I went a couple of years ago. We tasted some wine, but we went to the winery, and Amichai was tasting us on all these barrel samples, and we had a whole bunch of bottles. He puts them in like these white plastic bottles, all the different varietals, and we're tasting all of them. And then he says, if you guys want, take any of these wines, mix them up, and I'll tell you what's in each one. And we made like 3 different blends, and he came back and he tasted and he's like, this one is Cab Franc, Malbec. This one is this one is that. I mean, the guy, and just from smelling it, but he's like, oh, I'll just taste it to confirm. So like, when I saw that, I'm like, okay, I got to step up my game here because I need to figure out how to trick him next time.
The truth is, it's not always like that. There are days that I feel that I'm really, really sharp. And those are days that I try to do blends. But there are days sometimes I'll come to the winery and I know today I'm blending the Merlot Secret Reserve, which is I think it's the blend. It's a Merlot, it's a straight Merlot, but it's a blend of different barrels of different vineyards. And I really invest a lot in that because I love Merlot. And there are days I'll like start the day and, nothing works. I'll tasting and blending and spitting and it. And, forget it, wrap it up. I'll come back another day when I'm sharper. So that was an extra special sharp day.
We got you on a good day. That's good.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. It was a great experience.
I had something like that with, I was at Reserve Cut for the first time years ago. I was there with Jeremy Kufta. I mean, that guy is an amazing salesman, right? Knows his wines really well. And he puts me in one of those private rooms that Reserve Cuts have, one of the beautiful rooms. And I'm sitting down and he said, I'll be back in a couple of minutes. And there were a couple of guys sitting on a different table there, tasting different wines, etc., and talking. Yeah. I don't know, I introduced myself. Yeah, I'm the winemaker of Shiloh Winery. And this guy comes over to me, tell me, what do you think about this wine? He gives me a wine to taste. I didn't know the guy. I said, sure, okay, why not? I tasted the wine, and it was one of Herzog's Cabernets. And I said to him, listen, it's not, I don't want to look as if I'm bragging, but this is Herzog Cabernet, such and such. But honestly, I just had it for Shabbat because I was at Moti Herzog in California. I was at his house for Shabbat, and I drank this wine. And it's this wine. This is the wine. So, very nice. What do you think about the wine? I said, listen, amazing wine. Really good. I'm jealous. Okay. Jeremy Kuftal comes back. He said, let me introduce you to the owner of Reserve Cut. And it's like, I didn't even know who I was talking to.
That's funny.
I actually just had last night, I opened up the Merlot Secret Reserve for Shabbat, and we just finished the bottle last night, which is, that's a treat, when you have a wine like that and you have it, let it open for a couple of days. So I'm tasting now the Legend Fiddler, which is a extremely fruity wine. When you swirl the wine in the glass, the aromas come out of the glass. You pour the wine in the glass and you can smell it around the table. It's really very fruit forward. I love that there's that little bit the note of black pepper in it and some herbs. It's a little bit floral as well. So it's a big wine. It fills your mouth. Very, very long finish. And I always, it's like a tick, somebody does something, it automatically does something else. When I taste the Legend Fiddler, my right hand goes to the fork. I put down the glass, my hand is reaching for the fork. Where's my fork? Where's the food? That's Legend Fiddler. Legend Fiddler is like begging for some good food next to it, right? I think why every time I taste the Legend Funny, I understand why it became such a big hit. It's so well balanced and it's so elegant and it's so complex. And if you're around the table drinking wine with friends, there's so much to talk about when you drink a wine like this. And I think wine is also, or mainly even, I must admit, it's all about people. It's not just about the wine. The wine brings us together and makes us connect and makes us want to talk about something.
And you usually have something very special for dessert, because I've been to your house a couple times for dinner. You cook me a huge meal, and then you look for dessert, and I'm expecting like a piece of cake, and he goes and throws a piece of goose liver on the grill.
Yaakov Ulia will sometimes, we just posted something. This is dessert Amichai style.
Yeah. That's the way it should be done. So there's another question.
That's the way
here.
Dessert should be, right? Dessert should be like...
especially if you're drinking wine. And then there's brandy, right? What are you doing in the 9 days? How do you get through without drinking wine? There's a question here from someone in the group, someone in the chat.
Well, thank God, usually there's Shabbat in the middle. So that helps. I can say that it's more difficult not eating meat than not having wine.
There's nothing to eat in the house for 9 days.
Yeah, actually, it actually says in the Mishnah Berurah that if your diet is fleishik all the time, and that's what you eat regularly, then you can also eat it in the 9 days. But I can survive. I can survive a couple of days.
Who's your favorite retailer in the U.S. to work with?
What's his name? Something has to do J-Wine, Kosherwine.com, something.
I've heard of them.
You heard of them?
At least I know you're not lying.
They've been doing very well for us.
Baruch Hashem.
There's a lot of hakarat tov there.
It goes both ways. We appreciate everything you do as well.
Amichai, what started your journey into winemaking?
Well, I like to do things on my own, and I like like to do things that connect me to the land. So I'll grow my own vegetables, not just so I can have my own vegetables that grow in my garden, but also to connect to the land and do mitzvot atluyot ba'aretz. I'll build a matzah oven between my neighbor and mine, between our homes, and we'll bake our own matzah. And a lot of things I like to do myself and not buy something that somebody else did. And especially do things that connect me to the land, to Eretz Yisrael. And because I think that's why we're here. Ki tavo el haaretz unta'atem kol etz ma'achal, right? The first thing you do, you come in, you're supposed to plant a tree. Right? This is what we were meant to be as Jews. And making wine is like, it does all these things and so much more, right? Because wine surrounds us in so many ways. You can't avoid it if you're Jewish, right? Doesn't matter. It's when you're 8 days old and every Shabbos, and especially when you get you so much to the land.
And a few Wednesdays in between.
Yeah.
Did you say that you do not have a visitor center?
We don't have a visitor center. We're at the end of getting permits to build a new facility, so we'll be able to have a visitor center. But we do have, visitors do come to the winery. You have to just call in advance. You can follow me on Facebook or Instagram, and my contact information is there, my phone number, my email, and everything. And if you call in advance, then you can come for a tour and a wine tasting. It won't be like you usually do at a winery that you come, there's a tasting room and you taste some wines and that's it more or less. By us, it's a little bit different. We walk you around the facility and we show things that are happening now at the winery that day that you come. And I think it's a little bit more interesting to do things that other people don't do. So you come and next to the barrels, I'll take wine out of different wines out of different barrels and you taste directly from the barrels. It makes it more interesting. If we're in the middle of harvest, so sometimes people will come to the vineyards, see the harvest, taste wines that are just started fermenting, do things a little bit different than in other wineries.